Hello, Lionesses. This is Bobby Carlton. I'm the publisher and editor-in-chief of Lioness magazine, as well as the founder of Innovation Women. Today, I am talking with Billie Whitehouse, CEO and founder of Wearable X. It's one of the leading lights in wearable tech. While these days, Billie and Wearable X are focusing on yoga wear with a haptic response, she's been previously involved in creating exciting wearable tech for couples and long-distance relationships and the Alert shirt to enable fans to feel the thrills from their favorite football game. Thank you so much for joining us, Billie.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, I am dying to hear more about your wearable tech and your wearable tech journey. How did you get started with this?
It has been nothing short of highly entertaining. We really did start with the Funderwear, the couples product. It was a vibrating underpants for couples in long distance relationships. Honestly, the funniest thing we've ever built, and such a hilarious time. This was way back in 2013, and we released sort of around sort of Mother's Day, so not dissimilar to this time of year. And it was truly one of the most fascinating times of our lives. We would stay up until the wee hours of the morning because myself, the software team, and the hardware team, we all had 9-to-5 jobs. And this was just what we were doing on the side, because that's what you do as a young budding entrepreneur. And so we would stay up until honestly 3 and 4 in the morning, sewing and soldering and testing things. And it was genuinely hilarious.
Oh my gosh. Some of the online content around the product was absolutely hilarious. I will say that much.
Who knew sex sells?
Oh gosh, really? So with so many gyms closed or restricted due to the pandemic, I imagine your new product, the Nadi X, the yoga wear that helps you correct and perfect your yoga pose, is super popular. How'd you come up with that idea originally?
Yeah, so Nadi X has embedded sensors in the hips, the knees, and the ankles. And what we do is we read and understand the body's orientation using the IMU sensors, and then we provide real-time haptic feedback back on the body with inbuilt haptic technology. It's all washable, it's all tumble dryable, and yeah, it's been a very interesting time during the pandemic to see this like really interesting uptick of people practicing yoga at home. And thank God, really, because it is a practice that can be done, on your own terms with the right guidance. And that to me was always really important. So in coming up with the product, it was because I really struggled in yoga classes myself. And I really wanted that one-on-one feedback. And there were several poses that I wasn't very good at. And I really wanted to be able to go home and have that diligence and practice properly, but I never felt like I was able to get there in my own practice. And so out of that own frustration, I went back to our team and I said, is this even possible? And of course, everyone said no. And that's actually part of, that lovely entrepreneurial experience is you get a lot of no's. And then eventually, with the right team and, the right partners and the right technology, and it does take time for that to evolve, we were able to produce this product. And truly, this started way back in, pen to paper happened in 2015, but we didn't get a product to market really till 2018.
Good timing, right in time for that pandemic. So
Exactly.
how did the idea evolve from, 5-6 years ago to today?
Yeah, it has evolved a lot, actually. Originally, we thought the product would be something that people wanted to use in class. Frustrating that you can't always have the feedback of the teacher when there's 50 other people in the class. And so it would be something that you would get feedback on while you're doing your flow. And what we realized was actually that people really did want to use this at home, even when we first launched. And it was much more of a beginner product than it was necessarily an intermediate product because of the way the practice is built. And it's slow, it's steady, it asks you to hold the pose for a little bit longer. That way you can truly understand what the posture is about and what muscles you need to turn on and where you need to be focusing. And truly yoga is a mind-body experience. It is about drawing your mind to those parts of the body just as much as it is about holding the posture itself.
Interesting. So this product is both hardware, although I guess, bringing new meaning to the word software,
Mhm.
and an app. And when we first met, you described your, I'm not going to say ignorance, maybe naivete, and how hard that dual development process is. You said it was delightful. Can you talk a little bit about the challenge of producing both a physical product and a digital product and how you overcame that?
Yeah, there's nothing but learnings on all sides. And I mean, that to me is an amazing opportunity to work in a place where you are challenged almost every day. From the hardware integration, we had to really focus in on where do these sensors need to be placed so that we can have that understanding of the body. And there was many tests done. In fact, there were a group of sort of 50 to 100 different yogis who worked with us on a regular basis, both to collect data as well as to give us feedback on the poses. And that took months and months and months. Then, of course, that needs to be paired with a software experience. And in truth, while I'd had some experience in that space, I don't consider myself a software engineer by any stretch. And so there was an abundance of learning to go through there. And truly one of the most interesting learnings for me was that actually the audio feedback was really key to how someone was experiencing this product, partly because people close their eyes during yoga. So it's not enough to have the physical sensation on the body and a visual. The audio was truly key. And so that in itself, having audio, having the right voices, asking people if they would like particular types of instructions, and then giving them negative feedback. Not something that people love, but something that is very important to do if you haven't made it in the pose correctly. So how do you do that? And what's the right way to do that? And what's the haptic sensation that's paired with that, go back and try again instruction? Those human experiences that we went through in building this, they to me were some of the most fascinating. But also we made mistakes. Early days you do, and that's part of it. And you have to go through the many phases of testing to make sure that you can, be the industry leader in that space for washability and tumble dryability. And don't get me wrong, it took years to get that right.
Did you bring some with you today?
Oh, I did indeed.
Let's check it out.
See something I prepared earlier. In fact, we left little cookies in certain places. There's a little joke in the tag here. It says, "Don't kill my vibes." And so this has the sensors built in. You can see sort of in the hip here, then behind the knees and behind the ankles. And the location of where we clip in the battery pack, which is called the pulse, that was something we also spent a lot of time perfecting. It needed to be somewhere that was both comfortable as well as easy to remove and get on, but you could also do all of your yoga poses. So this clips in right here. Is the one spot on the body that doesn't get in the way in yoga, where you have this natural arc in your knee. So while you're lying flat, while you're on your side, it just naturally sits there and is very easy and comfortable to work with. I have now, of course, tested this rigorously and have to take it on, 10-mile runs and doing Barry's boot camp to make sure that it is still in the perfect place. And it genuinely is a remarkable spot on the body.
That's fascinating. I would have never thought about that. But yeah, thinking about yoga poses, where can that battery pack go? That's really interesting. So
there's a lot of ergonomic studies that go behind these sorts of products. And, sometimes they're not really talked about, but I find them to be some of the most fascinating work that we do.
So part of the, what you did is, you're creating a product, but that's really just one part of it. So one of your specialties seems to be the partnership aspect of entrepreneuring. You've done a lot of partnering. So can we talk a little bit about with whom and for what you've been partnering?
Yeah, I mean, that was really the heritage of our business, was that we were able to build products not just for ourselves and evolve the platform, which I always think is really important to start with. We built this haptic platform that we wanted to keep evolving. The first iteration was Funderwear. the hilarious one. The second iteration was the fan jersey, and we did that with Fox Sports in Australia, and it was for AFL, which is a game that I don't expect all American audiences to understand, but it's on a round field with 4 goalposts on either end, and it's really fast. And the product was called the Alert shirt, so that you could stay connected to your favorite players and feel what they were going through while you were watching a game, whether you're watching at home or in the stadium. So it would replicate things like heartbeat or adrenaline buildup or even impact. And that was, honestly, we wouldn't be allowed to do that in the US. And so the iterations we did over here when we moved the business over here were really for a slightly different sports experience. So we did it in partnerships with Bud Light. And it was fascinating to learn both about the Super Bowl and about football properly, and about the sensations that those players go through. It's intense, but it's also, what does the fan themselves want to be connected to? And then we had several iterations where we did this for football or soccer in Europe, and we did that with UEFA. Both in the south of France during when France was hosting the Cup, as well as we were part of a really interesting exhibition just outside Paris, which is all about the future of football.
Wow.
It has been a truly wild journey. And I mean, the core of it and the center of it has always been haptics, and haptics to build really interesting experiences and to heighten experiences. The core of the brand itself has always been, how do we connect people back to themselves? So, their own physical experience, back to their loved ones, the people that we are sometimes far, far away from, and back to the experiences and the places that we really care about. Bringing our attention and our focus to that space, so that even if there is a screen available, and even if you are connected to your phone, it is a permanent extension of most people these days, that, there's an opportunity to put that phone away and have that physical sensation that keeps you in the moment.
That's great. Part of the marketing for your company and your brand has always been your speaking engagements at conferences and events. Can we talk about some of the experiences you've had on stage and the process of getting you there?
Yeah, I'm so grateful for those opportunities, by the way. I always want to mention that, because it has been a lovely experience to travel the world that way. It obviously it's quite high intensity as well, because there is quite a lot of pressure when you're going to speak at those conferences, and there's, at least I would say an hour of preparation for every minute that you're on stage. And so that's a huge amount of time. And often I found, lately, even more so than before, and lately being pandemico, that people don't want to pay for you to be a speaker, even though that they are selling a ticket with your name on it. And yes, I understand that right now we're doing presentations from our living rooms, which is always interesting. But I think my struggle with that is, especially if you're selling tickets to an event. And you're selling tickets to an event, and you might have 1,000 people attending, and you're asking someone to present for an hour, which is 60 hours worth of my time in preparation. I find that really sort of upsetting, that there isn't that equality around that. And when I say equality, I mean quite literally. I've done my research into what other, sometimes male speakers are paid, and in fairness, sometimes they've had more experience than me, and so I understand that. I can be empathetic for that. Doesn't mean that they are bringing more sales to that event than I am per se. And so I have seen quite irritating disparity in what some speakers are being paid versus others. And while I'm so grateful for those experiences, and truly, having the opportunity to speak in France and in India, truly has been so great. I'm so grateful for it. Well, I'm more grateful for the ones that actually show up and pay.
That makes absolute sense to me. I think to
have
most
you ever
listeners.
had similar experiences?
Yes, I have. I showed up at one event, and while in the green room, had the conversation with some of the other speakers, and one was asking where he submitted his expenses, and I'm like, they're covering your expenses? And third person pipes up and says, well, yeah, it's like you submit it to the same person who's paying our honorarium. So I'm like, you're getting an honorarium. Okay. Meanwhile, I had gotten myself there, paid my expenses, and was not expecting a payday at the end.
Yeah.
Shame on me for not asking. So, lesson learned. Now I ask.
Yeah, I don't know that really is. I mean, while we will now take that responsibility for sure, I don't know that is your responsibility. I think it's the event itself they should allocate budget for speakers, and then they should pay them all equally. And if they have a keynote, totally understood. Someone who's speaking for longer, perhaps they're the highlight of the whole presentation. Understand that there will be some differences, but not paying some at all just doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, and I work with a lot of event managers, and on their side, some of them, some conferences and events are very expensive to run, and they are putting hundreds, if not thousands, of your best potential customers in front of you. And their point of view is, you want me to pay you too? I'm doing your marketing for you, and you want pay? So, I have to play both sides in my role as Innovation Women and our online speaker bureau, but I definitely want to see equity in pay.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I think there is a natural marketing that comes from it. And that's wonderful, and so grateful for those. But you do have to sort of pick and choose, what are the right audiences. I had one speaking offer where I was asked to speak to a group of manufacturers about my process. And that just didn't seem smart. While they offered a large amount of money to do this, why would I give away my IP? It seems not like no amount of money is really worth that. Well, unless it's genuinely the right price.
Yeah, I can see you turning that one down. Smart.
Yeah.
So every business has ebbs and flows. All the awards and success are balanced by challenging days, and sometimes self-doubt comes in. Can we talk about how you manage imposter syndrome and that self-doubt that comes with the tough days? Yeah.
I'm more than happy to talk about this. I think it's such a fascinating topic, and I don't know that it's unique to women. I think it is sort of a worldwide experience. In very early days, I would say I was, delightfully and slightly unfairly compared to Elon Musk, which I was 27, like an entrepreneur. I'd been doing it for maybe a year and a half. I really didn't know what I was doing, and part of the fact that part of what I love about this process is the learning. Every day there's more learning. But at that point, I remember being terrified because while this article was lovely, the comments underneath it from some people were horrifying. And by no means would I have ever said that about myself, but there was a challenging time to sort of deal with, being thrown into a spotlight somewhat unfairly, and then be expected to deal with sort of very, very negative perspectives on you. And for me, there was a lovely lesson that came out of it. And, I think it's sort of how I've tried to deal with imposter syndrome always, which is, no matter what you do, there's always more to learn. And no matter, what room you're in, you don't want to be the smartest person in there. And no matter what people say, they'll never really know who you really are. And that to me is that's the big one. And that was the big learning at that time is, you can't expect anyone to know who you are. They've not really ever spent a day in your shoes, and nor will they. And so, your experience will be unique to you, and you just have to believe in your journey no matter what. But there have been hard days, and there has been self-doubt. But I think there's parts of you that I think part of the entrepreneurial spirit is that you keep powering through it, even when it's really hard.
That makes perfect sense. So Nadi X, Wearable X. What's next for these great brands, fascinating, innovative products? Where do you go from here?
Yeah, we're really excited, A, about what we've built and B, about where we can go.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of what we really see for the future of wellness is personalization, a big part of what we're excited by and what our platform can offer. And then moving it into like interesting new areas of wellness. You know, we've really looked at how we can move into recovery and how yoga can be useful for lower back pain. That's been an interesting focus for us for the last sort of few months and almost a year. And, you know, we've seen, gosh, now that we're all hunched over computers and screens permanently from home, you know, lower back pain in itself has also increased, but it's an absurd amount of 80%, I believe, in the US who experience some form of lower back pain.
Wow.
And yoga is often part of that prescription of recovery. So recovery is a big area of interest for us and where we've been spending some time. And then, you know, it expands even further out than that. You know, can we then go into pain mitigation and can we go into physical therapy and then beyond that, you know, can we be a navigational tool? And you know, can we go into other areas of fitness and wellness? The pipeline is long and expansive, and it's really exciting.
That sounds fascinating. Any last tips for our audience today, other female entrepreneurs?
Yes, many. I want to make sure I articulate them properly, but I think the most interesting part for me, and what I hope will become interesting for any other entrepreneur, is any decision that you make and any perspective that you have can really be fed by so many data points. Don't ever let it just come from one. And don't let that one data point, whether it's you know, someone who sits on your board or a VC that you're interviewing or a customer who doesn't like it or whatever it is, take in all the data points to form a judgment rather than just one. And sometimes that one, you know, can be the painful one, but try and see them all rather than just that one, because I think that in any decision you're making or any, you know, opinion you're building, if you can take in all the data points, which, you know, it can be a lot, I think it helps us have this more rounded perspective of, you know, a scenario, a decision, a product, whatever it is that you're working on. I think that to me has been my most lovely lesson in the most recent years.
That is a great lesson. I really like that a lot. So speaking of Nadi X, I hear you have a special promotion coming up for Mother's Day.
We do indeed. We, backed by popular demand, in fact, we're actually launching our 30-day trial where you can actually gift your mum a pair of Nadi X for free. And she can try them out for 30 days before you have to pay anything. And that to us has been something that we've been really interested in trying during this pandemic season, so that people can experience the product and tell us what they think. And then if they don't want to keep it, they can return it to us. But we've actually found that the return rate basically is very low, 0 in fact. So people are very excited to keep the product, and it's been a wonderful expression. So please gift your parents and your mum specifically a pair of Nadi X this Mother's Day.
Awesome. That sounds fantastic. Okay. Today we've been talking with Billie Whitehouse, CEO and founder of Wearable X. Thank you so much for joining us, Billie.
Oh, thank you so much, Bobby. It was a true pleasure.